You've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth lawsuit involving a past legal agreement with a molestation accuser. Yeah, so we're talking about this. We're talking about the breaking news around the Michael Jackson movie, which is slated to appear in theaters October 2025. And it is having some real issues getting made, especially with this new lawsuit slash issue that regarding legal matters that is requiring this movie to be reshot. For those who do not know, Michael Jackson, that this is from the Jackson estate. This is a story that comes from Matt Bellany over at puck.news. And I just wanted to spend some time today discussing this. So let me just share my screen real quick. And we're going to be talking about an article that comes from People magazine. And let me make this bigger for you guys to see. The Michael Jackson biopic needs major reshoots after discovery of a past legal agreement with molestation accuser report. Michael, starring Coleman Domingo, Nia Long, and Miles Teller, is currently set to be released in October 2025 by Benjamin Van Hoos over at people.com. And again, this is an article that is originally stemming from puck.news. Matt Bellany over there, who I'm a big fan of, discussed slash gave some of the details about this. And God, this sounds like a disaster. And the thing that I'm like perplexed by is it sounds like a disaster that could have been easily avoided. So I wanted to talk about this as it appears in people.com. And I also was going to be sharing a few quotes from Matt Bellany's article. This is behind a paywall for Matt Bellany, so I didn't want to actually just read off the screen, but I did pull some interesting quotes that I thought added some context. So let's jump into this. Michael, the upcoming movie about Michael Jackson made in cooperation with his family, is reportedly in need of major overhaul due to unforeseen legal reasons. According to a January 23rd report from Puck, the producers behind the already filmed project are facing a nightmare scenario, in quotes, working to rewrite and do reshoots after lawyers realized a clause in a settlement made with one of the Jackson's former accusers presented an issue. Jackson, who died in 2009 at age 50, was accused in 1993 of sexually abusing 13-year-old Jordan Chandler. The musician settled with the Chandler family out of court for a reported $25 million. Part of that settlement, according to Puck's multiple sources, is an agreement that the Chandlers can never be mentioned or dramatized in a movie. The outlet claims that the Chandler saga was a key backbone of the movie written by John Logan, and that the legally binding agreement was overlooked when the script was previously vetted and approved. So let's just stop for a second right here. And I just want to say, if you're liking what I'm talking about right now and want to see more videos about me discussing the business of Hollywood, please subscribe and help me grow my channel. But one of the aspects of this that we'll get to in a second is how this movie is framed. And the issue with this movie is framed in a really just honestly dumb way. And I find it so confounding. And it's just solely that this movie bookends the legal trials in 1993. Essentially, this is a movie that is made with the blessing slash probably like very handheld agreement by the Jackson family to paint Michael Jackson as innocent. And that's a really complicated thing, especially given the press that he's had. And I'm trying to be really careful with what I say here. But to bookend this movie is a reminder of what happened, which is absurd to me given Michael Jackson's life. There is far more than enough material to cover a Michael Jackson biopic and portray a really complex, complicating human being with their flaws without ever really needing to touch this aspect of it. So the fact that they're trying to go to war and essentially clear Michael Jackson's name, it just sounds like, to be honest, a misguided approach, which obviously they have motivation to want to do. But let's just read this. And it's a quote from Matt Bellany's newsletter. First, if you recall, I wrote about the movie last April. Someone slipped me the script, and as I read it, I was surprised by how aggressively the project sought to change the narrative of Jackson's complicated legacy. Michael's famously protective estate and its executors, John Branca and John McClane, or involved in the movie. So I knew it wasn't exactly going to be a no holds barred exploration of the pedophilia allegations that first arose in the 90s. And then, in quotes, Jackson and his estate have always denied the claims, and he was prosecuted in 2005 but never convicted of any crimes. That engagement, sorry, moving forward in this article, that engagement has turned out to be a major problem for everyone involved. Here's why. The script begins and ends during the 1993 investigation into statements about Jackson's anatomy made by Jordan Chandler, the then 13-year-old boy whose molestation claim led to a worldwide headlines and an eventual $20 million settlement. The script depicts Jackson as the naive victim of the money grubbing Chandlers, whose unfounded claims forced Jackson to endure ridicule and persecution until he ultimately settles his resolve and reputation forever in tatters. So, this is a victim blaming movie, and this is a victim blaming script, which again, I'm kind of shocked that you had this level of A-list stars essentially be on board for this movie and slash want to make this movie that essentially exonerates Michael Jackson. Again, I'm shocked that they really wanted to confront this thing when you could really just easily ignore it. Like, they just released a Michael Jackson Broadway show a few years ago, and from my understanding, I don't think it touches any of this element of his complicated legacy, with some of the accusations made while he was alive in the 1990s and in the 2000s. Like, from my understanding, they largely, if not even largely, I don't think they talk about it at all. So the fact that this movie is, especially with the documentary from 2019, Leaving Neverland, like the fact that they are really just trying to focus in and clear Michael Jackson's name just seems like a mistake. I think of a movie like Elvis, which obviously Elvis had some not so great headlines around him, especially that haven't aged well since his passing in the 1970s. So much so that there was the Elvis movie in 2022, directed by Baz Luhrmann, and then Sofia Coppola made her movie about Elvis in 2023, centered around the Priscilla character and the grooming that that character experienced from the figure of Elvis Presley. But that is to say, the 2022 version doesn't deal with that at all. And that kind of felt like the approach I was just assuming this movie was going to do. To be honest, when I heard about this movie, I was just like, you know what? This is obviously going to be a very filtered, very protective image of Michael Jackson's legacy. They're not even going to try to address this. The fact that you're hearing that the family is actively trying to discuss this is bizarre to me. Let's go on with the People magazine article. Part of the settlement, according to Puck's multiple sources, is an agreement that the Chandlers can never be mentioned or dramatized in a movie. Uh, the outlet, oh, okay, I already read this. A source close to the production tells People's January 24th, the Michael Jackson biopic is not in total chaos. The inflammatory headlines about the moving halting are simply not true. The movie is moving forward and reshoots are happening in March. I don't know what else the studio or anyone involved with this close to production was going to say. They're not going to be like, oh, yeah, well, you know, Michael Jackson, like whatever. Like, they're not going to throw this movie under the bus. They're not going to throw the team under the bus. Like, they'd get in huge trouble for that. They were obviously going to deny as you have to. So I take that statement with a huge grain of salt. Spokespersons for Lion Gates, the film's distributor, producer King, and attorney Jonathan Steinsapper, who represents the Jackson estate, did not respond to People's requests for comments about the reports. And then let's just jump back into this felony article that appeared on Puck. And then again, this is another statement from this article, and I just want to make sure I have it right. The insurance scenes dramatized the extensive police investigation, including a traumatizing, in quotes, strip search of Michael that scars him for life. The problem? Years before signing off on the Michael movie with the Chandlers featured in the scripts, Jackson teams agreed that they would never include the family in any such movie. Yes, according to two sources, they signed an agreement with the Chandlers prohibiting any dramatization of them or their stories. Ouch, as Bellany says. That deal, which was overlooked by the estate during the vetting of the script, has now rendered the planned storyline and several key scenes that were shot unusable. Like I said, a nightmare. I just, how does this part get through the vetting process is my question. To me, it's just the obvious case of the Jackson family was trying to push this narrative forward. And again, I have my own feelings on this whole story. what this represents, what this says about Michael Jackson. Like, you can have your own feelings on this. I am not telling anyone to stop listening to Michael Jackson movie. I'm not saying for anyone to necessarily even believe these accusations. What I find so confounding about this whole story is the fact, the need to clear the name of somebody that most of the public, if they still listen to Michael Jackson, which most people still do, they don't really even think about this. Like, and here's the weird thing. I am a little bit younger. I am 27 years old. And maybe this is the whole point of this movie and putting this storyline front and center is I have grown up with these jokes my entire life about Michael Jackson. Like,
Went shopping at Kmart because he heard little boy's pants were half off.
anyway, like, you've heard those jokes. I mean, Family Guy made jokes about this. South Park made jokes about this as I was growing up. Like, this was kind of a common thing that people in my generation just kind of knew about Michael Jackson. Like, I'd really be curious if anyone between the age of, like, basically he passed in 2009. So if anyone, I was 10 or 11 when he passed. Like, if anyone that is probably the age of like 20 to like 35. Like, if this just wasn't a part of the Michael Jackson legacy, and again, maybe that's the whole point of this movie is they want to change my opinion on it, and especially some of the complications of his legacy involving that. If that's the point of the movie, I just don't know if the Jackson estate should be the one to do this. I think it's very complicated when you're talking about different narratives, especially of the family who has a lot to benefit from the Michael Jackson image being cleared. And obviously they have reasons to do it. They've also been very staunch in their love and support of Michael Jackson. It gets really messy really quick from an integrity standpoint. And let's just talk about this last line for Bellamy's article. A source at Lionsgate is similarly hopeful that the King can resolve the issues in time to hit the October release date. Universal has a jam-packed 2026 slate, so there aren't many dates to put Michael if further delays are needed. So this movie is still on track to come out 2025 October. Let's just read the rest of this article from People. Once slated for an April 18, 2025 theatrical release, in November, Michael was postponed by 6 months to its current release date of October 3rd. I think this might be why. The Jackson estate has repeatedly denied abuse accusations made against the late star. He was acquitted of child molestation charges in 2005. Additional allegations were aired out in the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland, prompting an ongoing legal battle. Among the producers of Michael are co-executives the Jackson estate, John Branca and John McClane. The film also stars the singer's real-life nephew, Jafar Jackson, who's 28, in the lead role. It's directed by Training Day's Antoine Fuqua. A previously released logline for the movie said it brings on an honest portrayal of the brilliant yet complicated Jackson. The film presents his triumphs and tragedies on epic cinematic scale, from his human side and personal struggles to his undeniable creative genius, captured by the most iconic performances that official synopsis added. Cast includes Coleman Domingo, Nia Long as parents Joe and Catherine Jackson, plus Miles Teller as lawyer Branca. So let's just cut back to me for a second before we end this. And this is all a really complicated way. And let me actually get myself orientated here, but this is a really complicated way to say that this movie very clearly has an agenda out in its favor. You can agree or disagree with what the agenda is. I personally, even hearing about this movie when it was originally in production, where I'm like, okay, well, I know what this movie is. I know the frustration it's going to create, and I know why people are going to get annoyed with this movie one way or the other. And this was always from the Jackson estate, so I always knew that this was going to be a fairly flattering depiction of Michael himself. And from my understanding, and again, this is like a really complicated thing to talk about because Michael Jackson obviously is someone who suffered himself a lot as a child. Like, that is the dramatic backbone of the story, is he had a really fucked up childhood. And like, that is worth exploring. Like, that is a really fundamental part of the Michael Jackson story, whether you believe the accusations or not. Whatever happened, which I hope most of us can agree, he at least showed poor judgment around children. Like, I feel like that is a safe thing for us all to kind of agree on. And you can say, like, whether it was innocent enough and he just had this really undeveloped mind due to his weird childhood. You could say like this was full on, you know, with intent, but like it's undeniable, like some of the creepy stuff around him. And that's, I think, where you could really focus and frame a story of, hey, like just understand this guy didn't have it easy or normal, and maybe have empathy towards that. And that is a dramatic beat that I think is actually well worth exploring in a movie. In this case, I just hear it and I'm like, is this movie just victim blaming? Like, that's all it really sounds to this movie. And obviously, some people are going to be thrilled at the idea of this movie. Michael Jackson still has his ardent supporters out there. They're all over online. I'm not trying to piss any of you guys off if you're listening to this. I'm not even necessarily saying what I think, what I believe of this. I followed the case to some degree. I saw the documentary in 2019. I have complicated thoughts about that documentary and some of the methods used to make that documentary and some of the stories that have been refuted from that documentary. Regardless, to say it is a complicated issue, and I think there is a way to deal with that with nuance. What I do not like is the family of this movie coming out and basically being like, hey, we're going to deal with this forefront, because honestly, to me, it makes you look a little more guilty. Like, Michael Jackson is global. His music is eternal. The art stands as itself, and the artist can be complicated. But like I said, and I use the Elvis example as a great example of, yeah, we can have complicated discussions about that, but it doesn't really denounce the art. And even like that's what I think Sofia Coppola does so well in that movie, is it doesn't fully denounce the artist Elvis, just some of the weird slash creepy slash inappropriate stuff that was going on around him. And focusing this movie on the family relationship with Jackson and his weird childhood and like everything that went wrong, like that is a dramatic heartbeat of a story that, to bookend it with this 1993 like lawsuit and basically be like, this person was a money grabbing like 13-year-old who was like pressured by his parents to accuse him. I think that's a really bad idea for a movie. And that is a movie that I'm just like, Jesus, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, and a discourse that is not going to be kind to Michael Jackson and the family. We'll see what will happen. This movie is going to make $1 billion either way. This is going to be one of the biggest films of 2025, unless it is a true utmost disaster. Otherwise, if this movie really just chronicles a lot of the big moments in Michael Jackson's life, like that Elvis movie does with style, this movie will probably be big. But anyway, I'll be talking about any further developments that happen with this movie as we go along. So thank you all so much for watching. And if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And to everyone who hates this video, well, here we go. So thank you all so much. Take care. Bye-bye.